War for Edadh is a strategy game. At its core, it's got a mechanic that means that your choices and decisions alone are going to determine your success or failure. In that mechanic, you've got 6 cards. Both players have exactly the same cards. Now, these cards have got values that run from 1 through to 6 one way up, and 7 through to 12 on the other side. It just saves you from having 12 cards in your hand. So if you picked this card and played it, if you played it that way up, you would have played a 6. If you play it that way up, you would be playing the 12. Now, combat is simultaneous. So in actual combat, you don't actually take it turns to see who wins and who loses. So in the game, each player picks one of these cards, and at the same time, they place them on the table. And the result of this determines who wins and who loses. Basically, it's the player that's laid the highest value. So if you take a closer look at these 2 cards, you'll see that I've played a 1, and you've played a 4. You have played the higher value, and so you win the round. Now, with 12 being the highest value, you're going to wonder, well, why don't you just play 12 all the time? So, if for example I played the 1 and you played the 12, now the thing to look out for here is that the 1 is actually a 13 against an 8, 9, 10, 11 or 12. So in this case, I have the higher value. The 1 in this case is a 13 against a 12. So I've played the higher value, and so I win the round. What this kind of reflects is that obviously you're trying to play a higher value, and that's showing that you're using more skill, more energy. But if you use too much skill, too much energy, then your opponent, more defensive minded in the round, can actually end up trumping you, as in this case. No unit or army can fight on forever. So your unit is going to have a finite amount of skill, endurance and morale. And that's what mastery points represent. At the beginning of the game, you start with 50 of these mastery points. When you play your mastery card, you're actually reflecting that you're using an amount of the skill and the endurance in the fight. The higher the value you're playing, the more skill, the more energy that you're using. So therefore, the more your mastery points will come down. Playing a low value, such as a 1, would only cost you 1 mastery point. The higher the value of the play, the more. So playing a 12 would actually cost you 10 mastery points. However, if you're in a situation where your opponent's low value goes to its high value and trumps yours, then you would only actually deduct 1 mastery point. In the middle of you using your skill and energy, your opponent turns it around against you and so wins. Okay, so to go over that again, every round you and your opponent select one of your mastery cards and then you play them simultaneously. And it's the higher value that wins, so in this case you've played a 9 that beats my 5. Now in any battle, in any fight, you have to use more skill, more energy to beat your opponent, to win in an attack. And that's why it costs you more mastery points. So by playing a 9 it costs you 7 mastery points, whereas playing my 5 has only cost me 3. So we both deduct our mastery points on our scorecards. So you can see obviously your mastery points start at 50 and then they come down. Round after round your mastery points will keep coming down, and if they ever reach 0, at that point your unit's used all of its skill, all of its endurance, its morale is at rock bottom, and so your opponent, if he's got any mastery points left, he's outskilled you completely and will automatically win the fight. The choices the players made in the selection of their mastery cards determines who wins the round and who loses it. Now in playing a mastery card, you're actually representing your unit or army fighting. So this is where the troop cards that you will have picked, you will have chosen to put in your army, affect the outcome of the round. Each of these troop cards have got a skill level associated with them, a mastery level. If you're going to play against a troop card that's got a higher mastery level, then it's going to be harder to beat. And that's where on the mastery cards there is this ability to guard. By playing a 5, this card can guard against a 9 or a 10. So in this instance, when you have played a 9, If I end up picking a troop card that's got a higher mastery level than yours, then I can guard that and not take any damage. So different troop cards have different skill levels. This one's got a 3, this a 4 and this a 5. Each round you're going to pick one of your troop cards, and one way that the skill level will affect the game is by giving you back a number of mastery points. The higher the skill level, the more mastery points you'll get back. For example, that one gave 2 back. If I pick this one, it only gives 1 back. So if your army is built of very high mastery level guys, you're going to get more mastery points back every round, which will give you more to play with. So you've got more flexibility in your choice of mastery cards. In the final part of the round, we work out how much damage the loser takes. On the reverse of each of the cards, there are attack and defense scores. And it's a simple case of comparing the attack value of the winner's card, the attacker, versus the defense of the loser's card. The skill level of the card will actually influence the values of the attack and defense. So, if you pick a high skill, you're going to get a better attack or a better defense. What this actually means in the game is if the winner's attack beats the loser's defense, then the loser is going to take maximum damage. However, if attack isn't higher than defense, the loser is going to take minimum damage. In this case, it's a 15 attack against a 9 defense, so it beats it, so the loser takes maximum damage of 10. Damage directly affects a unit's ability to fight. Wounded troops won't be able to attack or defend, as well as unwounded troops, so overall the unit suffers, and that's why damage is on the same scorecard as mastery points. As the game goes on, your damage is going to increase, and if your mastery points ever drop below your damage, then it's game over. Your unit has suffered so many wounds that it can't fight anymore. War for Edadh is a strategy game that minimises luck. You pick the troop cards that you have in your unit. Every round you pick the value that you want to play, and just like in an actual combat, you can watch your opponent's moves, learn to read what he's going to do, and so make the winning play. You control the number of mastery points that you use every round. You pick the troop card that you attack or defend with, which will influence the amount of damage. So overall you can see that War for Edadh is a game where your tactics and your decisions alone determine success or failure. In this video we've covered off the core gameplay to War for Edadh and shown you why it works the way it does to reflect actual combat. In the full game there's more that you can do. You can actually recover damage, but in so doing you lose your troops, and if you lose all the troops in your unit then you lose the game. You can also fight at different combat levels, different ranges, and you can outmaneuver your opponent to get to a range that suits the troops that you have selected for your army. Shields can also come into the game, and they affect the ability to guard. So if you play a mastery card that can guard against your opponent, and you pick a troop card that's got a shield, you're not going to take any damage. Other aspects that you can add into the game? Terrain can affect the game differently as well. For example, in a wood, you'll take less damage, and you also can use the woods as a shield. If you're on marsh, well, you're going to be taking more damage each round. There are standards, champions, leaders, and different strategies that you can employ in the game. And adding these elements into the game doesn't add too much to the complexity and builds on the core mechanic that you've learned. However, what they do is to give you a lot more tactics and a lot more strategies that you can employ to defeat your enemy.